This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Oh my God!
Welcome, everybody, to the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 93. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. And on this week's episode, we've got an update on what Jon Moxley is doing in the G1 Climax, as well as what's going to happen to Smackdown when it moves over to Fox in October. A certain wrestler, a famous one from Chicago, who everybody still chants his name in WWE, says he does not want to join AEW, as well as our review on SmackDown. And I want to say it was a glorious Monday Night Raw. Doing it with me, as always, he's the one, he's the only, he is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz, if you don't step up your game, I'm going to have to punch you in the vagina. Listen, step it up. We got a good podcast to give to the people, to give to the masses. I thought that Monday Night Raw and SmackDown were entertaining. They provided us with what they had to do in terms of moving storylines forward for SummerSlam. Now, were there things that we disliked? Of course. Were there things that could have been cut out? Of course. But by and large, man, cuz the summer of wrestling has been awesome. I thought that Monday Night Raw was definitely entertaining, and I thought that the 24/7 belt, to have a match to start off Raw, was good. Now, some people, including my wife, were not happy with how it played out. They felt like, you know what, Raw was good, and they said that, you know what's entertaining? It's really edgy. It's different. There's something different about these shows, but they didn't like the fact that they played up Maria Kanellis winning the 24/7 title and then screaming, "I'm the first pregnant winner! I'm the first pregnant winner!" A lot of people online as well said that was probably the worst moment of Monday Night Raw and probably the worst storyline throughout. What'd you make of it, and should that have been played out through Monday Night Raw? I loved her line, making fun of her man and saying,
"Oh, you absolutely loved it."
I thought that was funny. She's like, her husband wins the title, and he's in a locker room, and he's trying to hide from everybody who's trying to win it, and she's knocking. She's like, "It's Maria," and she's like, "You better open it. I'm going to punch you in the vagina." And I think everybody was like, "Oh!" But at the same time, I know that for others and for you, you're like, dude, why are you making this guy to be nothing? Because I think they're killing his character. They have killed his character at the expense of his wife, Maria.
Yes, and this is the thing. And you don't know anything about Mike Bennett. He was awesome in ROH. He was great. He was such a good heel character, and she was really good too. Even when he was over in TNA, he was a really good character. He was interesting. There's some depth to him. He's a very good wrestler. You get to watch him basically be decimated by Maria, which honestly, she doesn't even look like she feels comfortable doing it. And I think at this point it has kind of got to that uncomfortable stage. I thought the line was funny. It made me smirk. I didn't take a lot of humor in it, though. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought him winning the 24/7 belt, right, for a guy who has basically been beat up since he's been there, for him to go in and win this championship and that be his first championship, I thought for sure you should have at least had him hold on to it for a week. You know what I'm saying? Instead, he holds on to it for maybe 6 minutes and has to lay down to Maria. And then she just, as the entire episode goes on, she's toting that belt around. Now, the one thing I will say is they might have did some foreshadowing here. I'm not sure how this is going to play out. But you could possibly see Maria become Braun Strowman's manager. There's some speculation that might play out. We'll see what happens. Overall, I thought Raw was great. I didn't love that first line, but I thought Raw was great. This is one of the first Raws I can remember watching in such a long time, where I've got like 7 or 8 notes where I'm like, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about this. We have to talk about this. I thought this was a really, really good Raw. When we get to SmackDown, I have some thoughts on SmackDown, but I thought it was good, just not as good as Raw. I thought Raw was absolutely awesome. One of the things I loved about Raw, I loved the gauntlet match for the U.S. For the challenge for the U.S. Championship, and I love the Andrade Rey Mysterio mask spot. So Andrade pins Rey Mysterio, and before he kicks Rey Mysterio out of the ring, he rips the mask off of his face, like actually rips it in half and pulls it off of his face. There is no bigger sign of disrespect that you can give to a luchador than to either A, steal his mask, or B, disfigure his mask. In this case, Andrade did both. And I think this is awesome. This sets up for a great match at SummerSlam. You have something here to build upon, and I love it. I thought one of the masterful things they did with Raw was they weave storylines throughout the entire program that are leading to SmackDown. I thought this was awesome. This has Paul Heyman's thumbprint all over it. Did you not love this particular spot?
I loved it. I think that one thing that people are upset about is having Cesaro lose. I feel like people are just waiting for a couple guys to get that push that are worthy of it. And the three names that people are probably looking at are Drew McIntyre, Cesaro, and Samoa Joe, because they consistently take losses. They're built as these big monsters, but how credible are they when you got a guy like Cesaro? And it's unfortunate because I guess what we're saying is he's had a push. He's been a multiple-time tag team champion. You know, he was definitely over with the bar. But now as a singles competitor, it just seems like he's a guy that's an upper echelon enhancement talent in that he doesn't get extended title runs. He doesn't get to have this opportunity to shine. And in that's what kind of bummed me out about the gauntlet match. But by and large, wow, it was nice to see the crowd react to Ricochet. And it was nice to see them get behind somebody. Yeah, obviously, I like seeing Andrade be the heel, and Rey Mysterio still got it, but it was interesting to see, man. He looks a little bit older, no doubt about it. He slowed down.
Yeah.
He slowed down just a little bit. Not used to seeing Rey wrestle at that pace, but at the same time, it's good for Andrade to fight Rey Mysterio. You can definitely build credibility there, and you have a storyline. And I think what you liked and what I liked was there were great stories that were told all throughout Monday Night Raw, something that we could definitely dig into. And especially when you have an opportunity to look at the OC and realize finally Gallows and Anderson win a belt again. They have prominence. They're a squad now on Monday Night Raw that has prestige, with AJ Styles having the U.S. belt and Gallows and Anderson now have the tag team belts. I thought it was a great matchup, and one in which you say, wow, you have a clearly established heel group, the OC Club, and they're taking over Monday Night Raw. All was awesome. But you're telling me that your wife had an observation on one of the female talent there?
Yeah. So we're watching Monday Night Raw together, and she's like, so Alexa's got new boobs, huh? And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, Alexa Bliss got new boobs. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, look at them. And I looked, and she was wearing a very nice provocative shirt. And I was like, I don't really know if they're new. I've not really, I haven't paid attention to her tits. I have no idea, right? I've got no clue. I mean, look, Alexa Bliss is hot, right? If you go to our group chat, there were a lot of awesome things that were said about Alexa Bliss and about Mandy Rose and about my girlfriend, Becky Lynch, who's awesome. But I didn't notice. But my wife seems to think Alexa Bliss has new tatas. Did you notice this?
No, I have not noticed that either, because, Alexa is naturally beautiful. So I look at her personality and I liked her feistiness. But if she didn't go big enough. I think that, what's going on here? Did the insurance run out? Did she have problems? I think she needed to go to a C+ or a D action. She would look good with bigger ones. So I didn't notice that either. But I thought that, I liked the way it played out, because I thought she got hurt in that match with Becky Lynch. I genuinely believed that, wow, with the tears, Andrea believed it, my girls believed it. They were like, is she hurt? I'm like, you know what? The tears made it so that you really believed it. Then they go to commercial. But once you came back from commercial and you seen her leg propped up, you're like, oh, this is just a work. But, man, she sold the hell out of it.
She can sell like nobody's business.
No doubt.
Do you remember when we all found out her elbow was double jointed?
Yeah.
Do you remember that match? It'd just be like, holy shit, her arm, it's going to be broken. No, she just double jointed. She can sell for sure.
That was a highlight of Monday Night Raw, especially with the fact that it was a gimmick, and she came back and really worked on Becky Lynch and things like that. And that played out the storyline where Natalya comes in. And I thought it was good, the way that the build for Natalya and Becky has been taking place. But obviously, we're seeing that Natalya is going to be the face going into Canada, and Becky Lynch is playing the badass. And no doubt about it, I'm curious to see who's going to go over in that matchup. But the build has been fine. I liked always, hey, whenever you get a chance to see Fit Finlay, it's a good day. Even though, for me, I think the worst backstage vignettes are the ones where they're in the ring beforehand. It kind of takes away the mystique a little bit. Like, you guys are practicing, and we all know they practice at the Performance Center, but to be used as vignettes is not one in which I'm, like, really, me personally, fond of. But the highlight of Raw, something that I think surprised a lot of people and something that caused the biggest controversy, was seeing the manner in which Brock Lesnar returned and, in essence, destroyed Seth Rollins. And I think it was done in order to elevate Seth as a babyface and to further Brock Lesnar as this monster heel that potentially Seth has to overcome. But I felt like, the use of the F5 on the chairs multiple times, then going backstage and then ripping him out of the ambulance was flawless. I mean, it made national news. People were like, whoa, Brock Lesnar is a beast. And you have to establish that, hey, I'm a marquee guy. I'm the guy. You're going to come in here and try and take my belt? Oh, hell no. I just think they missed one part. If they wanted to take it to the moon, I think they did that. They elevated and enhanced people's interest in seeing Brock Lesnar versus Seth at SummerSlam. But I think all Brock had to do was grab the microphone and say, "You're not in my league, bitch," and then just walk away, or say something along the lines of, "You want Brock Lesnar? This is your fate, boy." Something along the lines to, talk. He doesn't have to deliver soliloquies. He doesn't have to go for 5 minutes. But all you got to do is destroy Seth, grab the microphone and say, "You want to challenge Brock Lesnar? This is your future. Get used to it." Drop the mic and walk off. I felt like it was great. I loved every minute of it. And look, for those that say it's old news and things like that, look, Brock Lesnar, whatever you think of him, and I know people are upset at his part-time schedule and the fact that we've seen him now for 2 decades, and the latter part of the last 5 years, he doesn't wrestle a whole heck of a lot. But at the same time, when he does arrive, you pop for it because you don't see it every week. And like we've said for previous wrestlers, that, sometimes you don't have to wrestle every week. And with Brock Lesnar, I think it's perfect, being that Paul Heyman's his guy. He comes in, and remember, too, the storyline part 2. Brock destroys Seth to the point where Heyman goes, whoa, stop. This is enough. And Brock disobeys. So that little moment there goes and tells people in the story, hey, Brock, stopped at the behest of his advocate. He's gone over the line, even to the point where his own manager is slowing it down. I thought it was great all the way around.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good. The thing is, I don't like the usage of the chair, and I don't like the usage of the gurney. And the reason for this is too much can go wrong. And we're about, a week out from SummerSlam? You're taking multiple F5s over a chair, and then you're taking multiple F5s over a gurney or a stretcher. And that scares me because so much can go wrong. And I'm not going to say Brock Lesnar isn't the safest worker, but Brock Lesnar, I think, sometimes doesn't realize his own strength. And that's dangerous when you're in the ring with him. And the last thing you need is for a superstar like Seth Rollins to get hurt. That's the last thing you want to see happen. So I was a little bit on edge watching all the F5s over the chair and then over the gurney. But that being said, I thought it told a great story. I thought it was awesome. The use of the blood capsule to show the internal bleeding, I thought it was great. You can tell Paul Heyman was all over the production of this Monday Night Raw. And I thought it was great. This was one of the best Monday Night Raws we've seen in forever. I also loved the way it ended. It ended in an all-out brawl. This Samoan Summit, I thought it was awesome. I can't wait to see Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns lock up in a ring. I thought this was the perfect backdrop and totally helped set up what was supposed to take place on Smackdown. I thought this was a perfect lead-in. I like the way both shows are highlighting each other. I mean, I don't know. This makes perfect production sense if you're running a massive television program that tells stories. This is something that you don't normally see Monday Night Raw or SmackDown do, and they both highlighted each other very, very well. And I think getting Vince McMahon not so much out of the mix, but off to the side a little bit, I think you can see what having a clear vision and allowing the wrestlers to go out and do their thing can do. Monday Night Raw was I want to say it was exceptional. One of the best Monday Night Raws we've had in a long time. I watched it from beginning to end. Normally I shut Monday Night Raw off at around 10 o'clock. I just can't stand it anymore, and I don't care. I will get the highlights, and I will get the clips, and I will figure out everything that happened for that last hour by hook or by crook so we can talk about it on this show. I stayed up. I watched the entire thing. I thought it was great.
Kudos to
I
Raw.
loved it.
Yeah, kudos to Raw. What'd you make of SmackDown?
I thought it was okay. So Raw, you're at like a 7. I thought it was really, really good. SmackDown, I felt like it was maybe a 5.5. And apparently Vince ordered a total rewrite of SmackDown super late on Tuesday, and I think you could kind of tell. SmackDown was good and it was entertaining. It just didn't hit the highs that Raw hit. And I think going into SmackDown, I was anticipating it being a continuation of what we've seen on Raw. I thought for sure it would kind of pick up where Raw left off, and it didn't. And that kind of left me wanting more. All that being said, I thought we opened extremely hot. You have Owens and Drew McIntyre. I thought they had a fantastic match to kick off SmackDown. I think it's hard to believe this is their first time working together, but I think it's kudos to how good both of these guys are. Drew McIntyre is an exceptional athlete. He is awesome in the ring. Kevin Owens is another exceptional athlete who is awesome in the ring. So when these two get to lock up and lock horns, I think it's awesome. I think the Kevin Owens, Shane McMahon storyline really should have been Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre the entire time. I don't think any of us really want to see Shane McMahon. Everybody wants to see Drew McIntyre, though. So why not put these two together? After this match, I kind of felt like SmackDown kind of slowed down a little bit and kind of pumped the brakes.
Exactly. That's how I felt, too. And I guess the sense that I got of the show was you put on some contests that maybe you could have reserved and provided at a pay-per-view level. I mean, seeing AJ Styles versus Kofi was awesome. It was a great match, but then you say, man, what would they have done if they had just waited and maybe teased it a little bit and then started to maybe tease a storyline between those two? Providing it on free TV was great, but at the same time you realize, man, if that's what you get on a free television match, what could they do with the storyline build?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, the other thing that I think SmackDown has going for it that was really, really good. And I don't know if we're going to get to see it at SummerSlam. I don't know if they're going to rush to build a story. I'm not really sure what they're going to do, but I do know that they've been working different house shows and different live events. Mustafa Ali and Nakamura. Do we see them lock up at SummerSlam, or is this a slower build that we see take place later on?
I'm hoping it takes place at SummerSlam. I think Ali obviously is a guy that has talent, and it was good to see him get a win on SmackDown. I'm not certain that he's going to go over. I think Nakamura should eventually win the feud. I think Ali is in a perfect spot to highlight himself, get the rub from wrestling Nakamura. Man, Ali's got a lot of talent. This is a guy
he's so good.
In the next 6 months is going to be in the mix there a lot of times, and maybe, just maybe, you're going to have an opportunity down the road where it's going to be Ali and Ricochet. I think that's a match that I want to see over and over and over again in an extended feud.
Isn't it crazy that Kofi Kingston should be Mustafa Ali, or Mustafa Ali should be Kofi Kingston?
Yep.
You know, one little bit of an injury and being slightly sidelined, and next thing you know, it's on another guy. But that's crazy. Mustafa Ali should be your world champion right now. It's crazy. He has a ton of talent. He is exceptional. I love watching him in the ring. I love watching his matches. I think he's very good on the microphone. He is a guy who he should have been highlighted more on 205 Live, and I think now he's getting the just deserved rub on SmackDown. I just wish there was a way you could elevate him more, because I agree with you. I think Nakamura should win the feud and retain his belt. It's sad to see how sometimes fortune smiles on a guy, but due to time, place, circumstance, he's not able to capitalize on that. What did you make of the closing angle for SmackDown, where a bunch of crates and scaffolding was dropped on Roman Reigns?
I think it's cool because people want to know, okay, is there going to be a new feud kicking off? Who did this? What's going to happen? But at the same time, I've seen it before, so you're like, okay, it was done well, but at the same time, it didn't.
See,
really...
I didn't think so.
Okay,
I thought it was done. I thought it was done poorly. I thought it was junky. I thought it was clunky. You could tell the hard edits in it.
Yeah.
I felt like Roman's acting in it for a guy who is premiering his acting abilities in what is it, Hobbs and Knobs or whatever the hell it is, the Fast and Furious movie. Was it Hobbs and Shaw? That's what it is, right? For this guy who's debuting in that, I really felt like his acting was subpar. He looked super disinterested in this angle and totally didn't get it over. Like, if there was something, I feel like he went into this like, okay, cool, so you're gonna drop some shit on me? All right, cool. Can I not get hurt? Because I've got other things I need to be doing tonight. Okay, cool, great. Let's go do this. Oh, I had something dropped on me. No, I'm cool, guys. I'm cool. Who dropped stuff on me? I'm cool. Who dropped stuff on me? It's kind of how I felt the angle was played off. I was like, for going from the highs of Raw to a mediocre SmackDown to ending on this, it was like a gradual decline. It was like what Raw normally is, where you kind of start off and you're building, you hit this climax right around the hour and a half mark, and then after that Raw is just kind of a dumpster dive into the sewer. That's what I felt like leaving Raw and heading into SmackDown was. We started crazy hot on SmackDown, and then it was just kind of a gradual dive into the sewer, and that's where we were left. I didn't like it. Look, I thought he was going to go tell Robot Interviewer number 2 that he was going to take on Samoa Joe. And I was like, cool. This is a match I think all of us want to see. After what took place on Monday night, this is the perfect capping of this storyline. So now we can really elevate it and amp it up as we make our push to SummerSlam. Didn't really get that.
No, didn't get that at all. I do want to ask you a little bit about the women, because obviously on the men's side we talk about who's been underutilized. How are you going to have Ember Moon in a title match and then she's losing matches? You have done, I think, the worst job in terms of building SummerSlam with the women in terms of Ember Moon. She's nowhere near believable, especially going up against Bayley. I think there's less than a 0% chance that Ember Moon wins, especially now putting her in tag matches and things like that. I feel like Ember Moon has been overlooked. And then I also want to get your sense of, does SummerSlam, because it's in Canada, did it need Charlotte versus Trish Stratus? Because it was nice to see her, but I get it that it's a one-off and it's in Canada and you want to sell tickets. But at the same time, Trish Stratus is retired. What's the challenge really for Charlotte to face Trish Stratus? I just think that on the SmackDown side of things, the women and how they're utilized need some work.
Yeah, look, the last couple weeks, I think the women have been underutilized. I've not been real impressed by what WWE has done lately. And I don't think we necessarily needed Trish Stratus for Charlotte. I like Trish Stratus's line, you know better than anybody. In order to be the woman, you got to beat the woman. I like that. I thought that was great. But do we really need to see Trish Stratus? I mean, look, I think Trish Stratus was awesome when she wrestled. I thought she was great. She was what women's wrestling needed at the time. All that being said, she's so far removed. Like, people don't even know who she is. Like, younger audience members don't know who she is. My wife, who just recently got into wrestling, has no idea who she is. I got to spend 15 minutes recounting who Trish Stratus is and go and pull up matches on YouTube for her to see how important she really was. On top of all that, was it just me, or did Trish Stratus look like she's weathered? I'm going to try to be polite here.
Age hasn't hit professional wrestling women in the best light in the last few years, and that's why I think
she just looks a little rough, man.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't want to see it at SummerSlam. But at the end of the day, you got to sell tickets, and it's in Canada, so why not feature somebody that you can actually have a wrestling match with? It shouldn't go more than 10 minutes.
I get it, but why not have Trish just have her be like the MC of the event then? If you're gonna do it in Toronto, let her be the MC of it all. Let her come out, let her kick it off. Halfway through, it's gonna be like an 8-hour show. Halfway through, so like the 4-hour mark where everybody's like over it, have her come back out. say something, have her do something with another wrestler, not wrestle, but do something. And then, that's it. Just be done with it. You don't need to see this. You really don't.
You really don't.
I don't know.
Not at all. All right, for the week, which show in your mind gets the win? Is it Raw no matter what?
Yeah, dude. I think we both agree on this. SmackDown, I don't think SmackDown did a good enough job. I thought it started off very, very good, but it fizzled. And I thought Raw was hot start to finish.
Give Raw the victory.
You wanna talk about CM Punk real quick?
I do, because of the fact that I disagree with you a little bit. Many people, once it was announced that CM Punk was going to arrive at StarCast, an event that kind of, now it's not affiliated with AEW. It's basically a sideshow. It's a show where it's a convention for wrestling fans. StarCast is a convention where wrestling podcast events, wrestlers show up and they talk about the great sport that we love, professional wrestling. But once it was announced that CM Punk was going to arrive, then the speculation started to creep up and like, oh, maybe there's just this opportunity for CM Punk to show up. Then CM Punk does an interview with ESPN, and we start to get a little sense of, oh, what's the background? Has he been offered a contract? What's going on? And in it, he reveals a little bit, I think, a story that's a work in my mind. And I think that what he's trying to do is to say, hey, you know what? I have been offered a contract. I have been, talked to, but why was it done over text? Kind of setting up that me against the authority, which he's known to do. Now, what's CM Punk up to? Is he training? Is he going to be in the ring? Now, if he shows up at AEW, it would blow me away if he shows up at All In, because obviously that puts a marquee guy to show up there around the time of the summer, and then now with TV arriving October 2nd, I think it would be great news. Now, people are looking into it.
Could you imagine Chris Jericho and CM Punk? Oh my God.
It'd be
Dude,
awesome.
I would not have enough Kleenex or lotion or baby oil to contain myself.
It would be
My
wild.
tank would be so dry.
Yeah, it's something that I do think that AEW is doing a good job of, is blurring the lines of reality and what's going on storyline-wise. In essence, what I think is actually realistically happening is they're negotiating the money. They obviously want to start slow and say, okay, maybe give you $1 million or $2 million a year. He's like, oh, hell no, I want 3, 4. I want to work this many dates. There's a lot of things to work out. The dates, the appearances, and I think the biggest thing that will be the sticking point is he's going to want a certain level, maybe 90% or more of creative control. He's going to want to say, okay, I'm not jobbing to no guy that's called Jungle Boy. I want to show up. I want to show up to AEW, and I want the Chris Jericho plan. I want to know what's he's getting, because in essence, for those that don't know, Chris Jericho is heavily involved with his creative work now in AEW. So he's going to be a very happy man, and he's going to have a lot of input as to what's going on. But you can't do that with every wrestler, because if you start to do that, then you get into the scenario where, you got to rewrite shows 15 times because 15 different guys don't want to lose that night. And you can't have that. I do think that Cody Rhodes will do a good job of it. But I do think that right now they're negotiating. I don't think nothing is done, but it would be great if CM Punk was going to be a part of AEW. It would be massive. But if they got some things to work out, I don't think that he would trash Cody Rhodes publicly and say, yeah, and if you're Cody Rhodes and you're Tony Khan and you're texting deals, that's kind of amateurish, and I don't see that in any way. I don't see so far Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes going, okay, we're going to offer you 3 years, $3 million, take it or leave it. No, you're going to go through representatives. You got a lot of things to work through, so I think it's a work, and I think it's sophisticated to build the hype, and I do think that when he shows up at StarCast, people are going to just tell him, please come back. It doesn't have to be for 5 years. Just come back for a year. Come back 1 year, get some people over, let the fans see you, close that chapter, and even if it's a 6-month run and it's just right away you're in the mix for the title and you put over a guy or things like that, that's fine too. CM Punk has to close that chapter. Otherwise, we're going to hear his name forever.
Yeah, I agree. It really seems like the fans want so much more from him. But I don't know if he wants to wrestle anymore.
Right.
He has come out time and time again and has said, I don't want to wrestle. He wanted to do MMA. He's not very good at it, right? He's accomplished everything he probably needs to accomplish in wrestling. He was at the highest, the pinnacle of WWE. WWE misused him, he feels. He was upset by it, He left. So what else is there for him to do? Is it to go to AEW and wrestle with his friends? Maybe, but I don't know if he wants to come back and wrestle. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't think AEW necessarily needs him. I think if AEW was able to bring CM Punk back, that is a huge, huge bullet point for them, right? I think it's awesome. I think it instantly becomes must-see television, right? So if you bring him back October 2nd, you're tuning in because you want to see CM Punk. And if you're not tuning in October 2nd to see him, then you're tuning in October 9th to see him. And if you're not tuning in October 9th to see him, then you're tuning in October 16th to see him. You're tuning in to see him because he is a draw. It would be huge for AEW to get him. I don't think they need him, though. I think you're tuning in no matter what on October 2nd because you want to see this brand new wrestling program. You want to see what they can do. You want to see how they're able to build off these pay-per-views that have been, for the most part, exceptional. So it's interesting. I don't know if he comes back. I don't know if he wants to come back.
Yeah, it'd be real interesting to see. We'll tease it. We'll talk about it further. Now some matches have been announced. Chris Jericho is going to be there. Cody Rhodes is going to be there. October 2nd, Wednesday. It's going to be awesome, bro. I can't wait to talk about it as the card shakes out. Double or Nothing's going to take place. It's going to be unreal. It's going to be a great weekend in August, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
All right, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What you got?
Well, you just kind of alluded to it. AEW has announced some of their first matches that'll be televised on TNT. Their first match that they've announced will be Cody Rhodes taking on Sammy Guevara. So that should be a pretty solid match. Sticking with AEW talent, Jon Moxley remains undefeated in New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Climax 29. He had a big victory over Naito this past Sunday in Japan. Moxley is currently 5-0 in the B block following wins over Tagachi, Jeff Cobb, Ishii, Shingo Takagi, and Naito. So those are actually massive names that Moxley has gotten wins over. He's basically in charge of the B block as it sits right now. So keep an eye on that and see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see how New Japan utilizes him, because I'm not sure if AEW is going to allow him the back and forth motion that they allow, or that ROH used to allow wrestlers. Our ROH wrestlers used to be back and forth between ROH and New Japan all the time. So it's going to be interesting. Do you remember Emelina?
I do.
Well, she is now joining Impact Wrestling. She has gone from WWE to ROH, from ROH now to Impact. So it'll be interesting to see what trajectory her career goes now in Impact. We'll see what happens there. Mentioned on Tuesday night SmackDown, WWE Netflix announced that the Big Show will now have his own show. It's called The Big Show Show. It's a 10-episode docu-series. I don't necessarily want to call it a documentary, but it's a docu-series that will feature The Big Show as he copes with being a retired wrestler who is married with 3 daughters. Production will begin on August 9th. Leo Rush has dropped a rap song in his time away from WWE. His new single is called Scenic Lullaby. You don't need to hear it. Let's just leave it at that. You don't need to hear it.
Wait a minute, man. Fantasy booking. Leo Rush, Enzo Amore. You know?
Yeah.
That'd be something.
Can we have a wrap off?
Hey, I think it just go right to the paint. You got to create a song. Call it Vince.
Call it Vince. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be like what is that? Nick Cannon's what's that show that he has on MTV? The one where everybody Wildin' Out. It'd be like Wildin' Out, where they just sit there and they rap back and forth and they get points.
Exactly.
That'd be great. And then when SmackDown moves to Fox in October, it sounds like it's going to be totally overhauled. There will be a new logo. There's going to be a more sports-centric show. There's going to be more expensive cameras used, and the production value is going to be increased. So it'll be interesting to see what this new version of SmackDown looks like.
Ooh, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be interesting. Man, the fall is going to be fun, especially with the rumors potentially that NXT could be going to Fox as well on FS1. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I can't wait to see how what takes place in the fall.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Is that all you got, brother?
That's all I got, brother.
Great podcast. all is good in the wrestling world. It's an exciting time as we prepare for the debut of AEW, a pay-per-view for AEW as well. SummerSlam is just around the corner, so good stuff there, sir. Definitely support those who support us. Follow Dennis Farrell on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell, the Wrestling Perspective podcast, and the Wrestling with Sports podcast that he does. Great work there by Dennis. He's had some great guests, including George Kittle, tight end, and the one, the only, Jim Ross. Dennis does great work there. The Wrestling with Sports and the Wrestling Perspective podcast. Dennis does great work. Support those who support us. For Adam the Jock Strozinski, I am the Doc, John McAroon. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRStroz. Adam alluded to it earlier. If you're a fan of wrestling, you got to join us in the Flick Chat application during the shows. A lot of humor, a lot of hilarity. All you got to do is go to our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, click on the invite link to Flick, and you're in the group just like that. As SummerSlam approaches, as AEW approaches, as new podcasts are released talking about wrestling, we're having a lot of fun debating and talking professional wrestling via Flick. A great application that allows us to engage with our supporters. You don't want to miss out. We'll talk to everybody next week. Thanks for downloading the latest edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. See you next week.